Hey, besties and bosses. How y'all doing? Happy Tuesday. I know I'm always getting used to the Zoom thing. I like to double check on Facebook and see when I pop up, but I think it's saying I'm already here. So y'all will have to tell me if I am live. I'm just going to keep chatting until I am to make sure that when this does go live in the Facebook group that I can see all of you. I see myself. Exciting. Happy Tuesday. So today is such a fun day. I did my live Q&A this morning. So I hung out with some of you super early, started the day. I mean, not too early. It was 8 o'clock for me, but I know for some of you it was 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. So thank you for those of you who joined. For me, the replay should have gone out if you did join for that. I had client calls today, and now I'm hanging with some of y'all again here. So I'm feeling all the good. I love when I get to connect and jam and all this stuff with all of you. So for those of you who are live now, hi, I think I see Marie, hi. For those of you watching the replay, nice to have you as well. I'm looking forward to our conversation today. We're going to talk money and money goals, and title of this is the most important thing to focus on when it comes to your money goals that you're probably missing. I feel like we haven't had a good money chat and a good money mindset manifestation chat in here in a while. We've been talking all sorts of things. We haven't chatted about this in a while. So this one is a topic I always love, something I talk about with clients quite a bit. And this is also what we're going to dive into today, something I feel like I have to revisit and relearn at every stage in my business, at every mile marker, income marker. And I know. I always want to share this really transparently with all of you, because what I find is so often, I see this with clients where the belief is like suddenly you're going to learn something in business or with your mindset or with marketing or with sales, with anything, but particularly when it comes to mindset, that you're going to learn something and then it's like it's a one and done. And what I find is more often the truth is that we're on such a continual journey in business, and we're always just moving along that path, and we're at a different place. And so we might learn something, we might understand something, we might master something, and then we get to a new part of the journey and there's a new bend in the road, or there's something new that comes up, and we get to bring all that experience of what we've learned around a concept with us. But oftentimes, get on a new highway, or if you have to drive over a mountain, like taking this analogy too far, but if you're going a certain direction, then sometimes you have to take that lesson, take that mindset, take that thing you've learned and reapply it and learn it in a new way to be able to navigate this next part of the road. And so what we're going to chat about today, this is something I feel like I've had to revisit at every new juncture, at every new off ramp or new road I get onto in business. And it's something I chat with my clients about. And I think sometimes we have to revisit it, and something that I think is just helpful for everyone listening to know if that's the case for you. If this is a concept you're like, I've heard that before, I would invite you to play with, is there an opportunity to understand this in a new way or to apply this in a new way in business? Because this is one that we're talking about this through the lens of money, but really applies to business, to life, to really any goal you have in achieving that. I just kind of, as a side tangent before I go into this, but it feels important to say, I love talking about money. Y'all know I love money. I love more talking about money from the perspective of making money on your terms. It's not even always about the money. It's like all about the money and not about the money at all. And when I talk about things like manifesting or the mindset around money, something I really believe is, I think we hear the term money mindset a lot. And I really think it's mindset, period. And money happens to be a lens we look at mindset through. So the concept I'm going to talk about today, the most important thing to focus on when it comes to your money goals that you're probably missing, because this is a mindset perspective. Again, we're using money as the lens here, but this is really something you can apply to any area of business. Hey, Heather, nice to have you on. Nice to see you on here. So something that I don't mind the background noise, y'all. I feel like today has been like city noises and noises for all of the recordings, and that's just been the live situation happening today. I actually took calls in my closet for a while today because there was so much background noise. So don't mind that. We're going to roll with that anyway. So something I chatted about and what I put into the email when I sent this out, and you'll have to tell me if you feel this is true. When we think about money, when we think about money goals, because that's what we're particularly talking about in business, income goals, when we think about making money in business, you don't have to out yourself, but give me a praise hand or tell me if you've ever been in that headspace where you feel like you are obsessively thinking about that money you want to make. You are like, I know what I want to make. I'm obsessively thinking about this. Like, I am so focused on the money I want to make in my business. And it's important to focus on you like, know it's important to know what you want. And like that whole mentality of what you focus on expands. You're like, I am focused on this. I know the money I want to make. Like, I know that money goal. I am like, focus. Like, this is all I'm thinking about it. you want it, you know what you want. You're like, I want this fucking money. Like, I want to book these clients. I want to make this thing so damn much. You're doing all the things, you're taking the action, right? You're doing all the mindset stuff everyone says. You're like doing the affirmations, you're clearing the blocks. You're like everything everyone says. You're like, I am doing these things because I am making that money. And then it's like, what the fuck gives, because the money isn't showing up the way you expected or wanted. Again, no one has to call themselves out, but if you've ever experienced that with any kind of goal, we can use, I think fitness is always a really good example, or dating. Have to let me know if you have ever experienced that. Marie says, I heard a pop champagne. I hope it's champagne, Marie. I don't think it's champagne. I hope it is champagne. We've had, they're digging, this is for everyone listening who's been on all the lives today, or my clients who've been on calls with me today. They are literally the street outside my building. I live on a very quiet street in Brooklyn, but they happen to be excavating they're doing something with the pipes, with the cement. We have like those old school bricks. They're literally digging those all up right now. So there's been like jackhammers, and I don't even know what's going on. You can't even drive down the street. And then I think my man is also cooking dinner for us. I think those are the noise, but there's just been a symphony of noises today. Heather says, yes, I've experienced it. Thank you, Heather, for bringing us back into what we're talking about. And I think we've all been there, right? Like, I think everyone, if you're here, if you're a business owner, if you know about mindset, if you know about manifesting, if you care about your business, if you've ever heard about goals, you know how important it is to focus on goals. And that is the narrative. And I think what can happen with that, right, is like one of the things we do is we're like, okay, I am driven, I am high achieving, I'm going to do this right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to super focus on this thing. I'm going to do all the things right, and like focus, focus, focus. And then it's really confusing when the results don't show up. I'm like, WTF. And so what I'm going to share today, I feel like this is probably a concept you've heard before, but I want to share it in a slightly different way. And I'm sure this is probably pretty simple, but again, I want to share this in a slightly different way, because this has been something I have to see at every level in business. Whether it was my first sale ever, my first $1,000, my first 10K month, my first 20K month, my 32K month, my 88K sales month, whatever that is, like whatever the amount is, this has preceded it every single time. And that is, this is going to sound like a mindfuck, but it has been really looking at, how do I actually stop focusing on the goal so much? How do I stop obsessing so much? Essentially, we're talking about detachment. And this is something that has preceded every big mile marker in my business, income-wise, but also when I look at business or life or any personal goal I've achieved, every big mile marker in my personal life as well. So I'm going to break this down, but something I would invite all of you who are watching now, if you're watching the replay, play around with and think about something that you've mastered in your life, or something that is going well, or something that maybe you once didn't have and you now have. So for some of you, that might be now you're married. At one point you weren't married, now you're married. For some of you, it might be, you're in shape and you have some sort of, whether it's like a sport and athletic ability, or it's, you got into started eating well or something like that and are in particular kind of shape. Maybe it's in a dating realm, maybe it's in your business, but thinking about, maybe it's a skill set you have, maybe you play an instrument, but something where it's like at one point you didn't have this thing you wanted and now you do. Tell me, now that you have this, for those of you already married, for those of you who already have kids, for those of you who already have the business, for those of you already making money, for those of you already have that thing that at one point you didn't, are you thinking about it obsessively every day? Every day, like for those of you who are married, you're like, oh my God, I need to be married. I need to be married. I need to be married. Like, I just focus on this. Let me just think about being married and like clearing the blocks and being married. And like, let me think about my person. And I'm being totally dramatic here, you all, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like when we have the thing we want, the irony is for most of us, once we already have that thing we claim we want, we tend not to think about it that much, right? Like, we get really excited. We celebrate. If you're my client, you celebrate. If you're in here, I make you celebrate. But outside of that, like our tendency is just to go on to the next thing, right? It's to focus on the next thing and the next thing ahead. We're rarely obsessing over that thing once we've had it. So it's really fascinating to me. And I think one of the ways we get in our way, and this is why this is a little bit of a counterintuitive approach, what I want to ask you or invite you to focus on, when we don't have the thing yet, what do? All we do is obsess, obsess, obsess. And so it's really interesting if we think about the whole idea with mindset, and we think about manifesting, and we think about really what attracts money and what creates success in business, is this idea of being it before you have it. How do we embody? How do we be that next level version of you? How do you decide and believe you are something, detach essentially to what you want, and then essentially be that version of yourself, that business owner, that person who is in a happy, healthy relationship before they have it? How do you be that person before you have it? And I think when we're on the other side of something before we have it, we think that means obsessing about it overall all the time. Thinking, like getting super attached and locked into it. And while there is a degree of focus that I think, I mean, I'm a focused person, I'm pretty obsessed with my work. What I find is the irony is when you actually have those things, once you're on the other side of it, you're really not thinking about it that much. You know what you want. You might be focused. Like I'm very much focused, for example, on my relationship, but I'm not obsessively thinking about it and worrying about it and like on it like all day long. The same way I might be if I were wanting to achieve that, the same way we might be about wanting to book clients or wanting to make money. And I think it's really that difference between that desperate, needy energy, that very attached energy versus more of that lean back, that detachment. And I think the reason I want to frame it this way is because I think detachment can be a very confusing concept. And I want to frame it this way. So hopefully this lands with everyone, because what I find the most important thing to focus on when it comes to your money goals that you're probably missing, that most important thing to focus on is ironically not focusing on the goal. It's focusing on letting go. It's focusing on detaching. It's focusing on how can I focus on just knowing and trusting this is already on the way. This is already mine. Who can I be? Who would I be if I already had this? And letting go and stepping into that next level version of yourself who already has everything, who isn't obsessed all the time. So the thing to focus on is really not focusing so hard. And that is really what detachment is all about. And I think, again, this can be a little bit of a confusing concept because we hear focus, focus, focus. And what I want to offer here is focus is still important. But what we're talking about is the kind of focus when you don't have something, when you're kind of obsessively focusing. What I find that is really is that is a form of fear. And that is focus that's really a scarcity mindset, right? It's actually focusing on what you don't have, instead of more of that abundant thinking that's focusing on what you know is already on the way and letting go a little bit because you trust it's on the way. And that is really what detachment is all about. Let me know if that difference makes sense to you. That difference between when you're so focused on something you want that you don't have yet, where you're like, I need to have it, and like more of that grippy energy, when that's really a scarcity mindset, right? That is, I don't have this thing yet. I am missing this thing. I have a hole to fill. And I'm trying to be positive. I'm like trying to positive my way there, but I'm hoping if I can just be positive enough and if I can just affirm this enough that I'm going to fill in that hole and get this thing that I feel I'm lacking. And then I will feel better, good, successful, fill in the blank. Right. That's more that attached energy. That's the focus. I want to invite you not to focus on. And of course, as soon as I say don't focus on that, the brain wants to focus on it. But does that make sense there? Where when we're coming from more of an abundant mindset, when you're coming from that detached energy, you still know what you want. You just absolutely focus on the goal. If you're already married, it's not like you don't want to be married. It's not like you're not focused on your marriage, but it's removing that obsessive, grippy focus. And it's more that focus on, I know what I want, but I already trust it's here. I already trust either I have it or it's on the way. I trust that I'm safe and secure here. And I know things can happen and this is going to keep showing up for me. That's the place I want to invite you to play with and focus on when you're looking at making money in your business, when you're looking at booking clients, when you're playing with that energy of manifesting. And I find that makes all the difference. And so when I talk about this as something I've had to relearn and revisit at every single income goal or growth marker or success marker in my business, this is something I find what happens is right before any big growth spurt for me in business or any, next marker, I've literally noticed there has been a moment where I've almost had to just like completely detach and be like, it's not that I don't care, because I think that's a very different thing. Detachment is not caring. I still care a ton, but I've had to literally detach where it's like, I know this is already on the way. Like, and I don't really like, it's totally all good if it doesn't happen. I know it's already happening, but it's like, I'm also like, I'm literally going to focus on something different. When I chat with clients who I'm coaching them and they're in the middle of a launch, oftentimes I'll have clients who are launching like a group program or a course or like having a big launch. We'll actually plan in other things for them to focus on Like, what fun thing are they going to either celebrate when they're done with the launch, or can they plan in and schedule some fun things to do in the middle of the launch? Because this helps them detach, and this helps them get out of what we're talking about here, where it's like when you're so focused and myopic that you end up getting grippy, and it's actually counterintuitive, versus if you're really in the mindset of abundance and trusting that things are happening, you wouldn't be obsessing over it the same way. So same thing I've noticed, like I've had the same thing happen in business. In fact, sometimes I found the biggest growth spurts have happened when there's a lot of other things happening in my life, because of exactly what we're talking about. When you have a lot of things going on in your life, it's just hard to obsess the same way as when you don't have as much going on. And it's just so much easier to, wrap around that axle of like, I need this so badly to fulfill everything. And I feel like I'm lacking and missing this thing. And I find that on the other side of any new growth, and this is just like part of the up level, I think this is very common. I see this in a lot of my clients. I find then it's sort of like we contract, expand, contract, expand. Like this is just the growth pattern for all of us. What I find happens for a lot of us, mindset wise, energetically, after you have reached a new goal, after you've up leveled, after you've broken through new ceiling, we're essentially in a whole new zone. Gay Hendricks talks about this as the upper limit. I find for a lot of us, what happens then is suddenly we either get into a panicked place where we self-sabotage a little bit because it doesn't feel comfortable, or we start mind tripping around like, okay, I'm here. How do I get to the next thing? I know my high achievers here. I know what this is like, where it's like you get to that goal, you barely celebrate, you're already thinking about the next thing. And I find that's when that grippiness can come right back in. And it's just it's like, okay, I've been here. I know how this goes. I now have to practice. How do I focus on not focusing so hard on wanting this thing, on basically focusing on the lack I don't have for that next goal? And instead, how can I practice leaning back into a little more detachment and trust? Okay, I want to see what comments y'all have, and then I'll give some examples, because I think this is one of those concepts that's almost a little obtuse and might be more, might make a little more sense if I give some examples. Hi, Courtney, nice to have you. Marie says, having it gives me peace of mind. When you say having it, because I saw this comment after talking, this was a few minutes ago, are you talking about having that detachment or having the thing you already want? Oh, I know what you're talking about. When I was asking the question in terms of if you already have this thing, how are you thinking about it? I think what you're saying is having it gives me peace of mind. So I think what's so beautiful about what you're saying, Marie, and for everyone listening, and this is, again, just for anyone who's joining in late, the thing to play with. If you think about something you didn't have once that you now have, we were using, for those of you who are married, if you think about not being married to now you're married, the difference in that mindset before marriage, and I'm not saying everyone's like super focused on marriage, we're going to use this as an example. Before marriage, right? Like I think the mindset can be like, I need this thing. I need, like, we can get so hyper focused on like, let me think about this. Let me obsess about, like, I need to focus on the goal. Like, how do I get this? Same with business, right? Before you have the clients, before you're fully booked, like that's all our brain wants to wrap around. Once you're married, you're not thinking about that all the time. Once you have all the clients, you're not thinking about that all the time. I promise you, I work with a lot of clients who do very well. And I know a lot of people who have a ton of money. People who have a ton of money and who are super successful, you know what they're not thinking about all the time? They're not thinking about money all the time. They're not thinking about where's my money coming from. And I think, so bringing it back to, so Marie says gives a peace of mind. I think this is just such a helpful thing to play with, which is part of detachment and part of, I think, a little bit of the mind fuckery around this when you're on the other side of a money goal, when you're on the other side of any goal in business or in life, is playing with, okay, so if I'm going to be that person before they have it, what is that person before they have, like, what is that person? How would I actually be thinking? What would I actually be focusing on? What would I actually be doing? What I would actually be focusing on is probably other things in my life. What I would actually be focusing on is all the stuff I already have and how great I feel. It wouldn't be focusing so hard on this goal and the lack and the things I don't have. Marie says, yes, having the thing, accomplishing the goal, achieving it. Yes, peace of mind, sense of accomplishment. What you would probably be thinking is, I already feel at peace. I already have this goal. I got nothing to worry about. This feels really good. Let me think about something else. Let me think about what I'm gonna have for dinner tonight. Let me think about where I'm gonna go spend my money. Let me go think about what I'm gonna do when I have some free time tonight. Or let me think about where I'm gonna go on vacation next. Notice how when you have the thing you want, when you have that peace of mind, the last thing your brain is wrapping around is all of the worries your brain wants to wrap around when you don't have it, which means that's the place to really focus on if we have to be it before we have it. Does that backwards logic make sense? Because I find this is to be true every single time, every single time. I'm going to give some examples here because I think that might help make some more sense. And essentially what we're talking about here is the idea of detachment. And I find this kind of focus is a form of detachment. So one of an example that came up recently for a client that I think many of you can probably resonate with. I had a client who just went on vacation, and she came back from vacation and she was like, my mind is blown. I just like went on vacation. I didn't think about business. Mind you, this is someone who's been showing up consistently, like doing the strategy, doing the mindset work. She's been putting in the work behind the scenes. So this is not as magical. I mean, it's very, very magical, but just so you can know the behind the scenes. But she'd been like super focus on the goal, focus on booking the clients, focus on making the money. Went on vacation. She was on vacation. So she like took a week off, literally was not focusing on the goal, was not focusing on the money, was not focusing on the clients, which is essentially when you don't have it, you're focusing on the lack of it, right? Came back and she's like, Kim, like WTF? She booked so many discovery calls and clients within 1 week that all kind of came through during vacation. And that happens so often. I see this all the time when people go on vacations, again, when they have other things going on in their life. I've experienced this when I go on vacation. I've just seen this over and over again. And I think what's happening here, when we take a look at what's going on, it's not like everyone now needs to go book a vacation, though go book a vacation, especially if you can with COVID time. Vacations have their own, resting has its own benefits. But part of what's happening when we see this phenomenon play out is you just can't wrap around all of that needy, graspy, that like attached energy the same way. When you're on vacation, you're like, oh, well, I'm just taking this week off. I just don't need to think about this. I'm going to think about business when I come back. And as soon as you do that, you're letting go, right? You're acting suddenly like the person who already knows everything is fine, who already is trusting everything's working out, who's already trusting they have money or clients are on the way or things are working out. The same would happen with me when I was acting all the time. Literally, this was the joke in acting. I acted for 10 years. Every single time I booked a ticket somewhere, the joke was like, you have to buy a non-refundable ticket. As soon as I bought a ticket to go on vacation somewhere, an excellent audition would come through the door. But same exact thing we're talking about here. I'm sure for those of you, whether you're single or in a relationship, for anyone who's ever dated, you've experienced this to be true, right? When you're so like obsessively thinking about like, I need to meet someone, I need to meet someone, I need to meet someone. It's that much harder to meet someone, even though you're focusing on the goal, even if you're showing up on Tinder and doing all the things, even if you're getting dates, it's so much harder because you're acting like, not only are you grippy and attached, but you're acting like someone who is single, right? A single person thinks about needing to date and meet someone all the time. Versus as soon as, I'm sure many people have experienced, as soon as you start dating someone, ever notice that like people come out of the woodwork, or when you're like in a mindset where you're like, I really just like, I don't want to date anyone, like I am good, where people come out of the woodwork, and like that's when you randomly meet someone at the grocery store, or in my case, I met my person on Tinder, but I was definitely in that sort of a mindset. Same thing we're talking about here. And I think because what happens is suddenly you're detached. Suddenly it's not that you don't want the thing, but you're detached, you don't have that grippy energy, but you're also in the mindset of someone who already has the thing that you want, whether it's the money or the person you're dating. Someone who already has the thing isn't so grippy, isn't so obsessive around it. Does that make sense for y'all? Let me just see comments here. I have to keep toggling back and forth from Zoom and Facebook. Okay, I don't see any comments there. And so I think that's the thing. Let me just give some more examples here. This is something that I see. Let's see, another example that I have. This is like a funny example that came up on a client call last week, but I bet a bunch of you will relate to this. Are any of you good cooks? Or do any of you love to cook? Or I mean, we could insert any skill here, but I have a client who's a really great cook. And we were talking about the same phenomenon here. If you're a great cook, if you know you make great meals and you make a great dinner, what you're not thinking about every day is, oh my God, how am I going to make a great dinner tonight? Am I going to burn it? Am I not going to burn it? How am I going to make sure I have all the ingredients? What if the ingredient doesn't show up? Okay, I just need to think and visualize and like super obsess over this dinner I'm going to make tonight, right? Like, no, you're like, I know how to cook. I've got a recipe. I've got the ingredients. I'm going to make this thing tonight. It's going to be phenomenal. It's going to taste great. And if like you don't have an ingredient or if you accidentally burn something, you're like, this is like no big deal because I know what I'm doing. I trust myself and I know I'm going to make a great meal. Like that great meal's already on the way. That's what we're talking about here. When you already have the skill set, when you already have the thing, when you already have, like, when you trust yourself, the energy there, that detached energy, it's not that you don't care about great cooking. It's not that you don't care about great food. There's just a lot more relaxed energy. There's just a lot more detachment. There's just not as much obsession over the thing. It's only when we don't have the thing, right? I am not the world's greatest cook. I'm a true New Yorker in that way. I boil water very well. I order dinner very, very well. I'm excellent at finding great restaurants and ordering off the menu. I can, make a few things, but I'm not a great cook. And so I know what happens if I'm going to cook. And let's say I was going to have, this was before COVID, but the last time we had people over for dinner. When I have people over for dinner, if I'm actually in charge of cooking, this is like the most stress I ever get. It's like all I'm thinking about is the menu and the ingredients and how I'm going to do the thing. And it's like, and invariably, because I'm so wrapped around it and because I'm so grippy and because I'm so attached to the outcome, it's like there's usually something that doesn't turn out the way I want to because I'm so wrapped around this outcome, which really means in the back of my mind, I'm wrapped around fear. I'm not trusting it's going to be okay. So I think sometimes these examples are, we're talking about cooking, but how we do one thing is how we do all things. How we approach one thing is how we approach all things. And I think what's really valuable for everyone, when we're thinking about money, when we're thinking about business, like, yes, it's cooking we're talking about, but if we can look at how that plays out with something like cooking, we can see the mindset at play. We can see where those thoughts come from. And we can also see the result on the back end. We can see, when you don't trust yourself that you're a good cook, when you're like fearful that you're going to burn dinner, or like if you don't make dinner well, like you're going to let some people down when they come over, what happens? You tend to overly obsess about it, overly think about it, get super grippy, get super attached to the outcome. It matters so much and you never get the same results. Whereas when you're in self-trust, when you're like, everything is going to work out fine. I know there's going to be great food. I know I can cook. I know I'm a great cook. I know even if I screw this up, I can just order something really well. When you're in more of that detached, trusting energy, what happens? It's like your cooking is different. The night turns out differently. The results on the back end are completely different. And then if we take it one step further, if you already have that skill set, how are you behaving? You're behaving like this is no big deal. I don't have to like super obsess over this. This is going to turn out great. And therefore it always does, even if there's mistakes or things that happen along the way. And the same is true in business. And the same is true when we talk about making money and what to focus on. Let me just see this comments here. Heather says, I do that too often. So I have no idea what dinner is tonight, LOL. Well, this is why we heard cooking noises earlier when I started the live stream, because I don't do the cooking. I rarely do the cooking. I'm great at a lot of things. I'm an excellent business owner. I am an excellent coach. I am really good on the creative side. Food is not one of my skill sets. And that is not a limiting belief. This is something I choose not to be a great cook because I prefer to outsource that or eat out. But just to chime in with you, Heather, I'm right there with you. I don't actually know what is for dinner tonight after tonight's live stream. But not to take us down a cooking wormhole, I think, does this make sense for everyone when we're talking about here in terms of this idea of what does attachment look like and this idea of what to focus on if you want to make more money? And if you want to like really step into those money goals and you're not reaching those money goals, this is the place I want to invite everyone to play with and to explore, because I find for most people, this is I don't love the term money mindset, like I said at the beginning, but if we're talking about manifesting and if we're talking about mindset around any goal, I find this is the piece a lot of people are missing. Because it is important to focus, I preach focus. It is important to take action. It is important to know what you want. It is important, positive affirmations and all of that, and to like trust this is true. But it's that grippy, obsessive energy that comes from a place of, I don't actually trust this is on the way. This is actually coming from a place of lack. That's the place I want to invite you to shift and to instead focus on detachment and playing with, what does detachment actually feel like? What is detachment? Because I think and the reason I want to describe it this way is like detachment is really, it is that feeling you have when you already have something. the way you don't obsess, when you already know you're a good cook, when you already have the marriage, when you already have the clients. That's really the energy of detachment. It's the best way I know how to describe it. And that's the thing I want to invite you to play with. And I think it is, I know when I hear detachment, when I first heard it, I was like, said with love, shut the front door. Like, this is the stupidest concept I've ever heard. So for any of you who are having resistance around it, I feel you on that. I know my logical brain had a hard time understanding this idea where it's like, wait, so you're saying, like, I know how goals work. I know some SMART goals. I know all about planning. Like, I know all about taking action. I really had a hard time understanding this idea of like, and then you want me to detach, because I really thought that meant detachment means don't care. Detachment means don't try. And what I want to invite you to think about here is there's nothing about detachment that means you don't care. There's nothing about detachment that means you're not focused on the goal. There's nothing about detachment that means you're not taking action. It's just the way in which you're taking action. It doesn't have that same grippy, desperate energy, and doesn't come from this place of lack or from this place of mistrust. Detachment is really, I think, you can have just as much focus. You can want something just as much. It's just the energy of trust, the energy of knowingness that I already have this, or this is already on the way. If we got like super into the woo for a second, and if we think about, I'm like, this is super woo, so you all just like hang with me for a second, even if you're not super woo. But if we think about the ideas of multiple universes happening at one time or multiple possibilities, I think detachment is really like opening up to this mindset where what you want already exists somewhere. And the more you can just keep showing up as if it's already yours and letting go of needing it in this moment where it's basically acting as if you already have it, the more you collapse timelines and universes so that it speeds up the process of coming to you. Or if we talk about this from more of a brain science kind of a way, the more you detach, the more you literally shift the way you're thinking. Because again, we're so attached, we're really coming from a place of lack. We're really coming from a place of, I don't have this thing yet. That's why I'm focusing on it so much. Instead of, I know this thing is already on the way and it's happening, or I already have it. Like, if I already had it, I just, like, it'd be cool. I'd be focused on it. Like, I just wouldn't need to obsess over it so much because I already know it's here. Which shifts the way your brain is thinking. When you shift the train track in your brain, I always think about like neural pathways in your brain, like train tracks. And you know how train tracks have, do any of you have kids who have those, you know what I'm talking about, the railroad tracks where it's like you can link them together. And I mean, they have this in the subway too, but it's like there's the little off ramp and it's like you just click a little switch and the train goes down the other track instead of down one. So I think about our brain with the neural pathways in our brain. When you can shift your thinking, instead of the train in your brain, the thoughts in your brain going down the track it's already going on, which is going to take you to the destination. It's been like just running this train loop over and over again. When you shift your thinking this way and you detach a little bit, it's like you hit that little switch on the train track and your train goes down a completely different pathway, down a different train track, which takes you to a different destination. Because as soon as you're thinking differently, the beautiful thing about thoughts is it's amazing how quickly things can shift when you change your thoughts. Yes, in the whole manifesting plane of things, but an energetic plane of things, but really on a practical science level as well. Your thoughts create your reality, because once you change your thought, you literally change the actions you take, which change the results you get, but you also change what you pay attention to. And what you pay attention to, that determines the opportunities you do or don't notice. And so when we're talking about something like money goals, when we're talking about something like business goals and booking clients, if you can get into that mindset of, I'm already the person who has this, I'm not so attached around it, I'm not so obsessed with it, you literally expand your perception and your field of vision in terms of what you can see as possible in your scope. When you're so focused on the goal because you think basically it's not going to happen, you're so grippy and desperate around it, you really narrow in what is possible in your field of vision to come, and what's possible energetically for you to come in as well. Is this making sense, y'all? Stephanie says, oh man, I'm late, what I miss, LOL. We're having a whole talk about money, what to focus on if you want to make those money goals. I think a lot of people are missing. We're talking essentially about detachment and I'm throwing in some woo and brain science, and we haven't had a good money talk in a while. And nice to see you, Stephanie. Heather says, I get the concept, but I find it hard to do. Courtney says, yes, really working on building that detachment muscle. Marie says, detachment is not good, or get into the right brain. Detachment is beautiful, Marie. So it's the opposite. Detachment is great. And for all of you, in terms of Courtney, I love that you're building that detachment muscle. I think that's such a great way to think about it. It really is a muscle. And for those, Heather, I know you say this concept is like, you get the concept, but it's hard to do. I find that is like, that's the case for everyone. And this is why I want to talk about it through this lens of, think about something you already have, something you've already mastered, something you've already accomplished, something where you're like, I just trust this thing is always here. Think about, literally, like, I would even close your eyes and think about, like, what does it feel like in your body when you think about whatever that is? So I use the example for those of you who are married or in a stable relationship, for those of you maybe who feel fit and healthy in your body, for those of you who are healthy, this might be a good one. For those of you who already have kids, for those of you, if you have maybe you have a job that you just really trust is there. But for those of you who already have, like, we all have, if we're watching this live stream, we at least have a computer. We all have some sort of abundance in our life that we kind of can trust. We all have some level of, we think about what's available in this world, some sort of wealth that we trust. And if you think about, how often do you think about that? What's the way you think about those things that you just know are already there? If you can almost like tap into, like, what does that feel like in your body? That's detachment. When I think about, and this is like, detachment is such a blessed, we are so blessed to be able to be detached about things, right? Like, this is, I think about how Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What we're talking about here, we're getting to the tip of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Base needs usually need to be met first, right? For us to get to detachment. If we don't have our base needs met, our food, our shelter, our water, like, those are the first needs. And we're moving up the ladder here when we're talking about something like detachment. Do y'all know what I'm talking about with Maslow's hierarchy of needs? I think about this a lot in business because I think this applies to business in so many different ways. But when we're talking about something like detachment, we do want to have those base needs met. And how blessed are we that we have those base needs met? But when we think about those things you can just trust. So this is just a thought that comes up for me. I live in the US. I'm so lucky I have water. I just trust I'm going to have water. I just trust when I turn on the faucet, clean water is going to come out. Like, and if we really think about this, like, from a scope of the world for a moment, like, how lucky and blessed are we? Like, so much gratitude for that. And most of the time, unless I'm practicing some gratitude, I just take for granted and, practice gratitude for it. But most of the time, like, when I go to wash my hands, like, when I'm just going through my day, I know if I turn on the faucet, water is going to come on. I'm not thinking all day long, like, oh my gosh, I hope I have water. I hope when I turn on, I hope when I go to wash my hands after going outside, there's going to be water there. Very blessed to be able to be that way, but I'm just sort of not thinking about it that much, right? Like, I just kind of trust that's going to happen. Like, it's not a thing I'm stressing about. It's not a thing I'm thinking about that much. That's detachment. It's not that I don't want water. It's not that I don't think water is important. It's not that, I don't have gratitude for the water, but because I just trust it's there, because I know it's there, because I believe there's an abundance of water. And I just know unless they tell me they're doing construction, the water's gonna be out for a day, I just know it's gonna be there. That is what we're talking about with detachment. And when if you think about anything like that in your life, maybe you think about that way with food, like, what are some of these base needs that are met? When we think about it that way, notice how you're also not obsessing about it all day long. And that's, again, like, that's the piece of detachment. Whereas I find when we're in lack mindset, when we're super attached to something, the opposite is true. Then we're just thinking all day long about, is there going to be water? Is there going to be water? Is there going to be water? And what I want to invite you all to think about when it comes to your money goals, when it comes to your client goals, how can you get into that mindset and that detached place of self-trust, which is when I turn the faucet on, there's water. Can I think that way about money? Can I think that way about clients? Like, and I think the best way to, again, find the places you already have detachment, because you can get a felt experience from that. You already have that. And then think, how can I apply this now to business? How can I literally, like, close my eyes, like, close your eyes right now and think, like, what does that actually feel like? And it's almost like a nothingness, which is a weird way to describe it, but think about, what does that feel like in my body? And that's the energy to play with. And that's the place to focus when it comes to those goals in business, which again, I understand is a confusing concept, but is also a mind fuck when we talk about like, focus on your goals, know what you want, focus on your goals, know what you want, and seeing it gets to be both. I can be super thirsty after a run. Here's a good way to describe it. I can go for a run and be super, super thirsty and be super focused on getting a glass of water. So I can still focus on it. But because I am detached and because I trust and know water is abundant, and as soon as I turn on my faucet, there's water, I am focused on getting that water. Like that is the first thing I'm doing when I come home. I am visualizing, I'm thinking about it, but I'm thinking about it from a place of, and I know it's going to be there when I turn on the faucet, instead of coming from a place of, okay, but I don't know if it's actually going to be there. And then maybe I'm gonna have to go somewhere else. And maybe I'm gonna have to do something else. And like, I better really like focus on this and like really thinking about it. Like, let me like text Eric and also like grab a bottle of water on the way home because maybe it's not going to be there. No, it's like I'm focused on this. I'm like, I can't wait to get a glass of, now I am like now telling myself I need water. I'm thinking about it and visualizing it. It's not that I'm not wanting it. I just am letting go and trusting. There's no part of attachment there because I'm like, I just know it's going to be there. Same when it comes to your money goals when we're talking about the mindset around it. Just seeing here if we have any other comments. Again, I get this is one of those, especially when it's being thrown as a comment, a conversation, a live stream. I get this is one of those things where it's like, oh, this is like a little bendy to think about. And I really, for everyone, I think what Courtney said is just such a great way to think about this. How can you even be detached around your goal with detachment? So not now making this where it's like, okay, now I need to master detachment, because that just becomes a new form of attachment and a new form of a lack mindset. And I really love the way Courtney said it, where she's working that muscle of detachment. And I would just see like, how can you play with this muscle of detachment? And what I think can be really helpful when we're looking at something like, what's that focus on the money goals? When you take a look at your money goals in your business, where are the opportunities to detach? Where are the opportunities to lean into self-trust a little bit more? Where are the opportunities to surrender? There's, do any of you know, Thoughts Become Things. What is his name? Mike Dooley. He wrote Leveraging the Universe. Do any of you guys get his notes from the universe emails? I think he's brilliant. I think he talks about some of this in such a way that is really easy to grasp. It's a great book, by the way, very short read, Leveraging the Universe. But he has an exercise, which is, if any of you seen this, it's a triangle where you take a triangle and you split it with a line down the middle. And on the left side, you write you, and on the right side, you write the universe. For those of you who don't believe in the universe, it might be God, it might be a higher power, it might literally be just getting this out of my brain. But the idea with this exercise is you write down, so if we have a money goal, write down your money goal. And on the left side, you write down all the things that are important, that like are yours to manage and to navigate. Those are the things you're going to focus on. And then on the right thing, you write down all the things you can't control, all the things you need to let go of, all the things you're handing over to the universe, or to God, or to a higher power, or to just get out of your brain. But the things that like literally you can't control, the things you need to detach from. And I find this can be a really nice exercise to notice the opportunities in your business, in the places when it comes to money, to notice the opportunities for places to practice detachment and to notice where you might be a little grippy, because often the things we're putting on that right-hand side of the triangle that go to the universe, that go to the higher power, that go to the places we need to surrender, essentially, those usually what we need to surrender are the same things we're holding on to tightly. So that can be a fun way to play with this. And what I would invite everyone here again is, this is now not a place to get super grippy, because that defeats the whole purpose of the conversation. This is a place to see, hey, this is a really fun opportunity. We talked about this at the beginning of the live stream. This is something, wherever you are on your journey, I find this is something we just relearn over and over and over again, because our human condition, our human experience, our being humans, humaning, part of that is, I find we just learn the same lesson over and over again. I find particularly with something like detachment, as soon as we master detachment, there's something new we want that we get attached to, and we kind of have to relearn that. And so knowing that is super normal. Again, this is something I've had to learn at every single dot along my path on the journey. I just have to relearn this. And so having this conversation again today, not to say like, oh, well, there you are, everyone's attaching again, versus hey, let's have a conversation around this and to see like, isn't this a beautiful opportunity for all of us to lean into that self-trust, to lean into surrender. Can you lean into surrender? To lean back into surrender, and to just keep working, as Courtney said, that muscle around detachment, to practice detachment and to notice where are the places you are gripping and where are the opportunities to detach, as well as noticing the places you've already detached beautifully and have that self-trust so that you can apply it into your next level money goal and that next level in your business. Heather says, I'm following you. And Heather says, I think I just had an aha. There's a difference between detach and not think about it at all or action on it, and detaching and trusting yourself, the universe, and focus on what you can control. Yes, exactly. Oh, I'm so glad you had an aha. I'm so glad that resonated. Exactly. And just to reflect this again for everyone, to repeat what Heather said, yes, there's a difference between detach and don't think about it at all. And I think that's where it's sort of like, so if we use the marriage example, if you're detached in marriage because you've got marriage and you're super comfortable, it's not like you never think about your marriage. It's not like you don't want a good marriage. I mean, I'm engaged, so I'm not married, but I'm in a happy, healthy relationship. I think about my partner. I think about our relationship. I think about it quite a bit. We literally have, I think I told you all on the last live stream, we have weekly, I don't know what we call them, like couple dates on Sundays where we talk about a relationship and we talk about finances. We talk about all the things. We talk about our week ahead. We talk about things where I call them our Sunday talks, different important things. Like I care deeply about that. So it's not that I don't care about it or it's not that I don't think about it, but I am detached in that because I trust it, which means I am not obsessively grippy thinking about it every second of every day because I know we're going to have that talk on Sunday. Kind of like the water example. I can love some water. I can want some water. I can be parched. I can even crave some water. And I'm detached from that because I know it's going to be there. And then the same as the difference between not thinking about it and not actioning on it. So you can still take action on it. You can be detached and still take action. I think that's the most powerful action. Can you take action from a detached place? And again, detachment does not mean you don't care or you don't think about it. It's more of a trusting place. Something, I think I've used this example with y'all before, but I'm going to use it again because I think it's so great. I think it's the difference between closed tight fists and open fists. When you want something, if you have like when we think about being attached and when we think about being grippy and when we think about focusing so hard obsessively on something because we don't think we're going to have it and we're worried about it and we're super attached, we have closed fists. When we have closed fists, it's really hard to get anything into your fist. Versus when you're detached, we can still be approaching the same thing. We can still want the same thing. We just have open palms. We're just a little less grippy. We're just a little more open. We're just a little more trusting, which means things can also land into our palms, which means we can also hold them. The other example I feel like I give this one a lot. So y'all, if you've heard this one before, bear with me. But the Chinese finger traps. I think about this a little bit like the way Chinese finger traps work. When you're in a Chinese finger trap, attachment and wanting and obsessing over something and thinking about your money goal where it's like, I have to have this and fuck, how am I going to get this? How am I going to book this client? I need to just like think about it all the time. And like, that's when you're struggling with the Chinese finger trap. And what happens when you struggle with a Chinese finger trap? You can't get your fingers out, right? Versus you can still be in the Chinese finger trap. You can still want to get your fingers out of the Chinese trap. You can know you're going to get your fingers out of the Chinese finger trap. You can be in the same exact place, but if you just don't struggle so hard and you don't make it so hard and you're not like, oh my gosh, this is so hard, I need to get out of this Chinese finger trap, the Chinese finger trap loosens up and you can just easily move your fingers out. So that's kind of how I think about detachment and attachment, the difference between those two and that energy, and the difference in what it does for those results. This is the finger trap. Do y'all like my sign language there? So let me know if you have any other questions, thoughts for me. I'll put a button on this one. I always think I'm going to be super short and concise with a topic, and then we talk for 15 minutes on it. So thank you all for hanging with me. Throw in any questions you have for me before I hop off. And what I wanted to also let everyone know, I know we had our Q&A this morning, but we're going for a like double header this month because I wanted to do the Q&A with you all really out of selfish reasons because I had so much fun doing that with the podcast launch team and the sellout without feeling like a sellout course at the end there. But we still have a free training this month. We haven't had a free training in a second because we have the podcast launch. I wanted to make sure you all know we have a free training coming up at the end of the month. Create your business blueprint and money map. I will make sure drop a link to that under the live stream here. It should be pinned to if you click the banner at the top of the group as well. We are going to be looking at really creating a very clear map in your business so that you know exactly where the money in your business is, and doing so in a way that I think is a little different than how other people talk about this. And looking at what goes into that business blueprint. We're going to create a simple one-page business blueprint. So something I know to be true that I have just seen 5 years in business and just helping, so many people at this point create and build profitable, successful businesses on their terms is business plans make sense in certain cases, but most of the time you don't need a 25-page business plan, especially when you're a solopreneur or a small business owner, and we're talking service-based businesses. I find a lot of times the super long business plans, unless you're looking for funding or you're looking for money from outside sources, I find a lot of times that's where a lot of people get stuck and spend so much time planning to plan and waiting and planning to get started. So what we're going to do is look at a one-page business blueprint, look at a few of the essential ingredients that go into that, and really the map for making money in your business. And my intention as we walk through this is really to have you be able to outline and have that clear pathway and actionable next steps you can take to book those next paying clients, to really get clear on where they're coming from and make that money in your business. So this will be a fun one. I'm always excited to hang with you. I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. So I will make sure we drop links for that if you want to join us for that one. And Heather says, sorry, I missed the Q&A this morning. Totally okay. We have a replay link going out. And just to close this out, for those of you who were on the Q&A, again, thank you for joining, or if you're watching on the replay, you have to let me know if you liked that format and if you want me to do another one of those, because if so, we'll do another one coming up in the next few months. Thank you all for hanging. I hope today was helpful. Again, remember, and the focus, if you want to focus on those money goals, just to put a button on what we were talking about today, the most important thing to focus on when it comes to your money goals, and really any goal that most people are missing, that all of you now will not miss in the place to play with, is really that detachment where it's like, yes, you get to care. Yes, you get to know your goals. Yes, you get to want those things, but really playing in that energy of detachment and showing up, still taking action, but showing up with that detached energy and really that trusting energy that knows what you want is already on the way. So hope that's helpful for you. I love you all, and I will be back next week with another topic for y'all. And I always do this here. I have to find I'm on like 14 different pages. Where is my Zoom link to end this? All right, y'all. There we go. All right. I will figure out technology one of these days. I love you all. Thanks for hanging with me. Bye.